Good morning, everyone, and happy Sunday. Dan is totally in the shot once
Please
again.
ignore my leg.
Just, he's trying to show a little leg for everyone. He thought you guys would enjoy that. So weird. Well, good morning. I'm sure that's exactly what all of you were hoping to see this morning when you tuned in live with Icon.
Welcome to church.
Welcome to church, everyone. Cheers and happy Sunday. Should we do coffee cheers? Cheers. Cheers to all of you. Happy Sunday. Listen, for those of us that live in Texas, one thing worth cheering. How do you say that? Anyways, one thing worth toasting. There you go. The mornings have been relatively cool around here. It still gets really hot during the day, but it's been like in the low 60s in the mornings. So fellow Texans, listen, the end might be in sight of the blistering hot weather, so let's hope so. But wherever you're watching from this morning, I hope that you're having a great morning, that you've got your coffee or your tea or whatever, and that you are ready to hear some good stuff today. I'm really excited because we are starting a new series today called Where is the Good? And I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of that here in just a second, but let's just go over a couple orders of business really quickly before we do that. First thing is, if you are new around here, if you just started tuning in, or if you haven't had a chance to do so yet, we would love to invite you to fill out a Connect card. You can just click on the Connect button that's in the chat, but that's just a way for us to have your contact info so that we can keep you updated on things that we have going on around here. So when we have in-person services or when we do any kind of gatherings or any kind of online experiences, that way you can stay up to date and know what's going on. And then secondly, to all of you who continue to so generously and faithfully give to Icon, thank you. Thank you for your generosity and for being so faithful in giving. If you would like to give this morning, you can click on the give button in the chat. And also, if you find yourself in a place today where you're thinking, man, I wish that I could give, I wish I could contribute, but where financially that just isn't feasible for you, maybe you have some needs that you need to take care of. Maybe you're not sure how you're going to pay a bill this month, or maybe you need some help with groceries or whatever that may be. We would love to be able to come alongside you and help in any way that we can. So you can feel free, if you have some financial needs, you can feel free to send an email to info@iconchurch.com and let us know what those needs are. And then we would love to come alongside you in any way that we can. Okay, so here in a little bit, we are going to go into a time of worship with Arlene, and then we have something really fun today. So the team and I, we were talking and doing kind of a sermon. We get together and have these sermon series planning meetings where we just kind of brainstorm and talk through creative ideas and things that we really feel like would be beneficial for us to have conversations about as a church. And so we were just talking about, it seems as if, not even seems as if, the world has been on fire for a solid year and a half and longer, but it just feels like it's ramped up, ever since, COVID hit. And even before that, there's just been so much that is so heavy and is so weighty, and it feels like right now it's really hard or harder than usual to find the good and to find ways to kind of hold on to our joy and protect our peace and all of those things. And we were just saying how we think that in the midst, looking for the good and looking for joy, it's not in a way of like putting our fingers in our ears and going la 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 and trying to ignore everything happening around us. But it's so important that in the middle of the heaviness and in the middle of fighting against injustice, in the middle of a global pandemic that is still raging and is still affecting so many people, and we're seeing all of these things go on around us that are so heavy, it's important that we be intentional about looking for the good and celebrating the good and finding ways that we can be a part of bringing good around us. It's good to be angry about injustice. It's good to feel the weight of what's happening in our world. We don't want to just ignore it. We don't want to become apathetic towards it. But if we don't have some kind of an outlet to participate in bringing good to our world, then that anger, it's just going to fester inside, and it's going to start to make us into apathetic and kind of very hard-hearted people. We have to have a means of channeling that anger and that frustration and that desire to see justice and love reign in this world, and we have to be able to channel that into doing good around us. And so for this series, for the next few weeks, each week we're going to bring in, we're going to have a conversation with a different individual representing some organizations in our community who are doing really good work. And then as a part of that, also give all of you the opportunity to be able to participate into bringing good into our community and into our world. And so here in a minute, we this morning are having an interview with my friend Calla Parker, who she works for an organization called World Relief, and we're just having a conversation talking about that organization. And then we've already been doing this, but we are going to continue to collect donations. If you go onto the giving page on the website, there is a drop down that is titled World Relief, and we are collecting money because at the end of September we're going to do a big shopping trip, and we are going to deliver a bunch of welcome boxes to the Dallas area for the refugees from Afghanistan that are making their way into Austin as we speak. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and go into a time of worship. And you can use that time to just center your hearts, to just kind of be quiet, to pray, to meditate, whatever is most beneficial for you, whatever sort of draws you closer to God and helps you to center yourself. And then directly from that, we will go into this interview with Calla Parker, and then we'll come back here at the end just for a few final words before we wrap it up. So without further ado, let's go into worship and then our lovely conversation with Calla Parker.
I'll raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemy. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope is alive. Death is defeated, the King is alive. Sing a little louder. Sing a little louder. Sing a little louder in the presence of my enemies. Sing a little louder, louder than the unbelief. Sing a little louder. My weapon is my melody, and I'm singing a little louder. Heaven comes to find me. Sing a little louder in the presence of my enemies. I'm singing a little louder, louder than the unbelief. Sing a little louder. My weapon is my melody. I'm singing a little louder. And heaven comes to find me. Sing a little louder. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar up from the ashes. Hope will rise. Death is defeated. The King is alive. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar up from the ashes. Hope will rise. Death is defeated. The King is Thank you, Jesus. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Oh, you give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath. and all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord, and all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord, and all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are great are you, Lord.
Well, everyone, welcome to Icon today. And I'm really excited because I have my friend Calla Parker with us. And Calla works for an organization called World Relief. And in this series that we're doing right now called Where is the Good, we wanted to take a week and really highlight some of the good work that this organization is doing, both in our community in the greater Austin area and around the world. So Calla, if you could just take a second and introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of the work that you do.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. And thank you for really intentionally spending a season pressing into the good. I think it can be a time when things are chaotic to get overwhelmed by that. So being able to be centered on what is good and what is happening is so very powerful and needed. So thanks for leading in that way. But like Kelly said, my name is Calla. I'm a partnership director with World Relief. So I get to work with churches and individuals that are wanting to connect into the work that we are doing as an organization here in the US and all around the world. But prior to that, I was actually on staff at a few different local churches. And so my heartbeat is, and my passion really is the local church stepping into its identity as the bride of Christ, bringing hope and healing to the communities that it exists in. And so what's so exciting is in my role with World Relief is I get to do that because our mission is to empower the church to serve the vulnerable. We desire for her to be a very bright light. And so we are a global Christian humanitarian aid organization that was actually founded in 1944 out of a church. There was, I always say like, think a little kind of, I'll say little old ladies because that sounds really bad, but just a group of people that were kind of like sitting in a basement doing their thing. And then they saw the devastation that was happening at the end of the war and all of the people that had been displaced. And they said, you know what, we can do something about this. We can stand with churches and make a difference. We can do our part. And so this small group did like an Easter offering, and they mobilized all of their friends and community and just raised massive amounts of resources, sent them over to Europe, and supported churches and refugees there. And then from that, the War Relief was birthed. And now, 75 plus years later, we've been in over 100 countries, currently active in 9, doing work with extreme poverty, violence and oppression, responding to natural disasters, and then mass displacement. And then we're also active in the US, working with refugees and immigrants as they come. But I love that we as an organization were founded from a local church as just a small group of people that said, you know what, there's a problem before us. God has called us to engage, and we can do our part, and that's all he calls us to. And then from that, there's been thousands of churches mobilized, and individuals impacted. So it is an organization I really love.
Yeah, I had no idea that that's how it started. And like that's really incredible. And it's so inspiring too, to think sometimes we just think, what can I do? How, it's like, it's just little old me, I don't have a lot of resources. I don't have a lot of connections, but yet you said it was a group of women. Is that who you said it was?
Yeah, it's a group of like a small group, and most of them are women. And they just said, we can be faithful to what God has placed before us, and we can act and invite others to do that with us. And their legacy is such a beautiful thing.
Wow. I mean, imagine if they could see it today. I bet when they started it, they had no idea, what it would become here. You said 75 years later is how long it's been?
Over 75 years later. And I think, in that course of time, there's been over 6,000 churches mobilized to truly live in their identity. And hundreds of thousands, of people impacted by this group that said yes to the Lord. So
that's so cool. And this wasn't in our list of questions, but I'm really struck by how you said living into our identity. Can you maybe unpack that a little bit more and talk about like kind of how would you see that kind of fleshed out in our everyday life as far as the church?
Yeah. I think God has given us as his bride the opportunity to, and that's the identity that he gives us, right? His church, his beautiful bride, that is here to bring freedom and love and hope to the communities where he has placed us. And I really believe, it says in scripture that God appoints specific places and boundaries that we exist at specific times so that we might feel our way towards him and find him. And many times we think about that versus those that are in movement. We think about that with refugees or immigrants, but I really believe that God, that verse is for us as one for church, or the church, that he has placed churches in specific areas at specific times so that they can be a light to the community around them. But we have the opportunity to step into that. It says that God has prepared in advance good works for us, that we may walk in them. That like God has prepared these things, but we also have the chance to step into them and respond with a yes or no. And many times I'm very guilty of it. I'll say no, like too busy to do that. And I don't step into that identity that he's given to me as being part of the church, as being his bride.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think I love just that idea of like the work is there to be done, like it's in front of us. All we have to do right now is just look around. It's like, the work is there, and it just is a matter of us stepping into that and realizing that, like if we truly believe that God is love, if we really believe that, then that means that part of what we need to be doing as followers of Jesus is bringing that love and that hope and that healing to those around us who are hurting and who are in need of it. And so that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I love the work that World Relief is doing. That is just incredible. The way that it's mobilizing churches and getting, because sometimes sometimes it's hard because we can sometimes feel overwhelmed by the weight of everything around us. And it's great to have an organization like World Relief to say, here, let me help you put handles to this and help mobilize you to actually do good and to help, because sometimes it just feels like we don't even know where to start.
Yes.
Yeah, that is really great. Okay, so can you so you've shared, we've talked a little bit about kind of the heart and vision of World Relief. Can you share with us maybe just one or two particular things that World Relief has been a part of or has done in bringing good to our world?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, just in a little bit of our history, right? We've been in over 100 countries doing different work at different times. Many of that was in response to natural disasters that had happened, or refugee crisis, which are also, right, disasters, mass displacement. So present in Syria, when the Syrian crisis happened, at the refugee camps, providing, food and non-food items. But what's been really fun to see, just even in this past year, so one of the countries we're currently in, and we're in 9 countries internationally right now. One of the countries that we're in is in Sudan, and we are one of 2 Christian organizations that have been allowed to operate in that country because of how excellently we did humanitarian disaster relief work. We were just known as being someone that had really high standards and worked really well with the government, so it was very respected. And when being a Christ follower was illegal, they said, you know what, we love how you serve our people, so come on in and do it. And so as the country started to open up, there was a little more confidence on the part of some of the Sudanese people that were there. And there was one gentleman who was living in an internally displaced persons camp. And some of our staff went there to do food distribution. So we really see this beautiful picture of the gospel of deed and word coming together here, because they were going to bring food to people that didn't have food. But this gentleman that was in the camp noticed that our staff person's name was Stephen. And he's like, that's a biblical name. Like maybe this person is a Christ follower. And this guy living in the camp had come to faith through some German missionaries a few years before, but had been super isolated. And so he approached Stephen and was like, do you know Jesus? And Stephen was like, yes, I do. And started walking with this man and discipling him and teaching him what it looked like to follow Jesus, building friendship with him. And then this man started sharing Jesus with those in the camp. And he has now 21 new believers and 3 different house churches that had formed in this internally displaced persons camp because he stepped into his identity to say yes to Jesus, to bring life and freedom. And as a result of our staff teams going to the places that very much needed practically assistance, but proclaiming the gospel as they went in closed countries, and so that's one example. I mean, I could go on for days, Kelly, but I won't. But I think one of my favorite right now in this season, just real quick, is so we are active in Haiti, is also one of the countries where we work and have been for many years. But our main hub is actually in Lakai, which was the epicenter of the recent earthquake that happened. But because we were present and because we worked through local church leaders, within hours of the earthquake ending, church leaders were mobilizing their youth groups to do assessments of their community to figure out which households were the most vulnerable, which ones needed immediate assistance, and were empowering, really, not even just the next generation, but empowering the church to step in, again, to their identity. And they were able to respond really swiftly and get immediate needs there met. But again, it was just, again, that theme, I think, of stepping into the things that God has placed before us. And that's the vision that we have in all of the places that we go to work. I tell you about, I could keep going, but I won't. Be here all day sharing about Burundi and Rwanda and Kenya and Congo. But God is doing some really amazing things through his church. And it's a privilege as an organization and as someone that gets to serve with the organization to see the church elevated and bringing Jesus to the areas that it exists.
It's just, that's good news, like that is, to me, it's like people talk a lot about the gospel, about good news, but I think sometimes it gets lost. What does that really mean? And like when you say these Haitian teenagers are being mobilized, to be able to get to serve their community, and to that's such good news, and to see them be able to rally around each other and to be able to care for one another and to have these needs met. That's just really, really beautiful. What a beautiful thing to be a part of.
And to think, it strikes me so much, one, because I have a background in student ministry, so I just love the students, but in a moment when chaos is reigning, to be able to say to these individuals and to these young people, like, look, you have great value, you have dignity, and we believe in that, and we want to launch you into what you're capable of, and actually have you be a part of the transformation that's happening here and work towards lasting change for your homeland, this place that you love. I just think how empowering and impactful for them at this age. I envision them 10 years from now and how they'll be leading in their community, and it just makes me so excited.
That's just that empowering people and getting people to come together. I mean, that's really the power of community, is coming together and taking care of one another, especially when something like that happens that is so like where you said where chaos is reigning. I mean, I just can't even imagine what that had to have been like in those moments for them, and for them to be able to step into that is just absolutely incredible. Okay, so maybe can you, we have been talking a little bit through email, and we've already been telling our church how we are partnering with World Relief. We are in the process of raising funds to be able to help with the current kind of refugee crisis that we see happening with a lot of people who are being displaced in Afghanistan. Can you maybe talk a little bit about specifically the ways that World Relief is going to come alongside these refugee families that are going to be making their way to the Austin area?
Yeah. So it's really a unique point in history as we think about and really the history of the refugee resettlement program. So World Relief is actually part of founding the refugee resettlement program in the late 1970s with the US government. And today we're one of 9 agencies that actively receives refugees. And what's interesting is, if anybody's been tracking kind of the refugee ceiling that gets set every year by the administration over the past 4 or 5 years, it's been significantly decreased. So I think last year it was, I'll get my numbers wrong, but only like 8,000 or something like that, or in 2020. And so as you look at how the agencies are positioned to respond to receiving 70,000+ refugees over the next 3 months, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And yet what's so beautiful and what we're so excited about is it's such a great opportunity for the church to truly be the church and to respond to a need that is quite massive, to be really blunt. Because what we've seen right over the past many weeks is with the US forces pulling out, there have been massive amounts of people have been evacuated. Many of them have gone to other countries where they're waiting as their paperwork is processed. And as they're figuring out if they'll be able to come to the US or not, the government has said that they are committed to receiving 70,000 individuals. They'll be coming over, and we've already been receiving many of them.
Wow.
They've been coming in through our air Army bases. There's been 3 different ones, and then they've been opening up some other ones that they've been coming through, but we've had staff deployed to those bases to welcome them, receive them, again, kind of process their paperwork, make sure that they're set and fully vetted and all of that, and then figure out where their families are, because many of them have families here, and so make sure that we're able to reunite them with their families. That's a big piece of what we like to do and try to do. And then family members that have people here that we've been working with really actively for the last decade, as we've resettled Afghans, they're coming to us with a list of family members saying, please help get them out or figure out where they are. So we've been working to try to locate them, to try to again reunite them, because we do believe that God desires for the family unit to be together, and we're committed to advocating for those people that have been separated. So as the families are coming through, they're then being sent out around the US. Many are coming to Texas, many are coming to Austin. Our World Relief office is in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but we service and work with partner churches, just like you guys, kind of all throughout the Texas area. When refugees arrive, they are experience a lot of different things getting here, which could be a whole nother topic for a different time. But when they arrive, if they come through with a refugee, asylee, or what many Afghans are coming through with, which is a SIV, or a special immigrant visa, they have that status, then they receive 90 days assistance from the US government, which gives them access to a caseworker, to vital services such as English classes, medical assistance, trauma counseling, financial literacy, kind of all of the things that you need to get established in a new place, in a new culture, to move towards flourishing. They get not all of the resources that they'll need for that, but they get assistance, which is so wonderful.
Sure.
There's about 23,000 Afghans that are going to be coming to the US under the special immigrant visa status. There's also about 50,000 that are going to be coming under what is called a humanitarian parole status. And we're getting a little bit into legal stuff, so sorry, but it's really important because those that come over under the humanitarian parole status are not eligible for any of the government assistance that they would have if they have the SIV status. And they're also not eligible for employment. And they only have 3 years to get their status shifted before they're then sent back out of the country. So the government very rarely uses the status, but in order to get people out quickly because they're in danger, they kind of reinstated it. It had been used before it's Cubans and Haitians. But what we're seeing now is there's a huge need for all of these vital services that these individuals who are becoming, but there's no resources to give to them. And so we as an organization have there's an opt-in program with the government. You can say, yes, we'll receive parolees or not. And we believe that God calls us to serve and love vulnerable peoples regardless of the legal status or aid, assistance that we might receive. And so we have opted in, and we are really grateful for churches that are stepping in to say, we want to stand with these families to help them launch well, settle here well, and move towards really integrating into life here and finding their new home and community. And so we have churches that are standing with us through financial generosity and through donations and doing welcome kits, which is one of the things that you guys are connecting with us on. Thank you so much. What the welcome kits do and why they're so wonderful is as families are arriving, they get a certain amount of resources, but the more that we're able to provide for them on the front end, the longer those resources last. So the more that they're able to have money for rent or money for, their transportation needs if they're doing public transportation. And so it gives them a longer on-ramp to really get established, because they only get 3 months of assistance. And imagine going to a place where you don't know the language and don't really know how to get a job, and you only have 3 months to figure it all out.
And you're coming from a very traumatic situation, that's I mean, I just try to put myself in their shoes and go, I can't imagine if all of a sudden I had to pack up my entire family and move to a country where I didn't know anybody, didn't speak the language, wasn't familiar with the culture. And then you're just kind of thrown. It's like, here, start your life. And it's like, well, how does that even, wow.
Yeah. And so what's interesting with the Afghans arriving is so World Relief's been resettling refugees in Texas since the 1980s. So we work, with those communities quite a bit. But with with the Afghans coming in, the proximity time-wise to the trauma that they've experienced, like you're saying, Kelly, is it's different because it's so much closer. And so where many refugees, when they come, they've experienced great trauma, but it might be 2 or 3, 12 years removed because they've been living in an IDP camp waiting for their paperwork to get processed, which is, traumatic in and of itself, but you find your new normal and new rhythm in the camp, right? But for these people, it's 2 hours ago, they were on, at the airport fighting to try to get on a plane and getting separated from their family. And it's just so fresh. And so their mental, like the needs for social psycho support is very high for many of these people coming in. And so we're really grateful for churches standing in the gap for them to help provide what they need. And so welcome kits do that. They stand in the gap to help, set up apartments. So when people come, they can walk into a place that is ready to receive them, and they're able to experience a Christ-like welcome, to experience hospitality, which we see all through scripture. Is what God calls us to do, is to extend hospitality to the stranger. That's from really Genesis to Revelation. We see that. And so really grateful for you guys doing that in this situation.
Yeah, that's just, it's like, as you're talking and like talking about these human beings, these image bearers of the divine, we can't forget that, that these people bear God's image and they are human beings. And just to even, and, like you said, everything they've experienced, we can't even begin to understand, but even to say, here's an apartment for you that is furnished and has blankets, and at the very least, they're able to show up and to have some of the basic necessities they need to be able to feel safe, because I can imagine they're probably terrified, and so that, I just think that's so important, and goodness. I mean, I'm so glad that even in some small way that we can partner and play, and play a role and to help with that, because it takes a lot of people working together to make this happen. It can't just be one church or one organization. I mean, it's going to take a lot of people coming together. And so I just feel really honored that we, are able to be a part, and that we can, in some small way, just through monetary donation and through, welcome kits, to be able to say, here's a way that we can in a tangible way extend the love of God and the hands and feet of Christ, to these people that need it. And so, yeah, that is
Well,
incredible.
it's truly a privilege for us to partner with you guys. I said earlier, our mission is to empower the church to serve the vulnerable, and it is churches in sub-Saharan Africa that are doing health and nutrition groups to keep child morbidity down, or it is Icon that's stepping into its identity and responding to Afghan arrivals here in the Austin area. So thank you for letting us live out our mission by saying yes. I'm really grateful for you guys.
Oh, well, we are so glad that we get to be a part. Well, we are going to wrap up here in just a minute. I'm going to be mindful of your time. I know that, you have a little few things going on these days, as wild as everything has been, but just lastly, so there may be some people that are watching today that are listening to you talk about World Relief and are hearing all of these things, and maybe for them it's something is resonating with them on a little bit of a deeper level, and they're feeling like maybe moving forward even beyond just giving towards the welcome kits and kind of helping, that maybe they feel like they would want to somehow be involved or partner moving forward. What would you say to someone like that? Are there ways that people can continue to partner and to be involved with the work that World Relief is doing in this area?
Yeah, absolutely is. And I'd say it's actually something that we're really trusting God for at this time is, God, how will your churches respond in this moment, in this disaster response, but also how will you lead them to continue to engage as we move forward? And what narrative are you seeking to write for each of them as you present this opportunity for them? And so I'd say one of the best immediate steps for people to take would be to go to the website worldrelief.org/respond. That's going to give some really great practical next steps for the Afghan crisis that we're experiencing. So ways that they could give, ways that they could pray, ways that they could advocate or volunteer. So we do have volunteer opportunities through all of our local offices. Again, I said that there's not an office in Austin. I'm working on changing that though, so pray with me, guys.
All right.
But we have virtual volunteer opportunities. And so that could be a really great way to connect in as well. And then there is, I'd say it's not World Relief, but Refugee Services of Texas is receiving and welcoming refugees throughout the Austin area. So they would be someone to consider if you're wanting to relationally connect kind of in this area too. So again, we are about kingdom advancement, not World Relief advancement.
Yes.
And so if you guys are wanting to serve and love and build relationship, please check out Refugee Services of Texas because they need volunteers that will do that. But I'd say kind of the one-stop shop for things would be the website worldrelief.org/respond. And then feel free, if you guys have any specific questions, you have my information, and I'm more than willing to have conversations with any of you guys.
Yeah.
What that could look like.
Oh, awesome. Oh, Cal, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And I am looking forward to future partnerships, for us to be able to come alongside and to step into our identity, and just to really be, it's like Jesus talked so much about, those who have been pushed to the margins, about welcoming the stranger, about, the widows, the immigrants, but, it just was the heartbeat of everything that Jesus stood for. And so as we follow Jesus, that's where Jesus is leading us, is to the margins and to the places that, that are hurting. And so I just, as a faith community and as a church, this is something that, while, I don't want anyone to feel pressure or feel like, oh, I have to fix everything. No. I think even just each of us doing our own small part, in our own way, all coming together and working together as a whole is what's going to really move the needle forward.
Yeah.
So,
who knows what God will do? I mean, that's the story of World Relief, is a group of people committed to saying yes to the Lord with the opportunity placed before them. And he's been so glorified from their obedience, and he's so glorified from your guys' obedience too. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you again so much for being here today and sharing with everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, she's fantastic. And I will tell you what, when we were having our conversation, I mean, just as she was talking more and more about just the broader scope and scale of what it looks like to come to the aid of refugees, it's enormous, and it is very complex. And so, but what I love about what World Relief is doing, and sort of what I gathered from our conversation, was that this is not something that is meant to be solved by one organization or by one church, or it's the kind of thing that it's going to require a lot of us coming together and everyone doing their own part. And so I just feel really, really lucky that we get to be a part of helping in this way. And again, for those of you, if you're feeling like this is something that you would like to explore, maybe for you personally, to be able to volunteer, be more of a part, check out both worldrelief.org and Refugee Services of Texas. Both of those organizations, I think, would be really great. I know that, like I said earlier, we are in the process of collecting donations to put together these welcome kits. We are going to focus on bedroom and kitchen kits, because that's what Calla said are typically the two that are a little bit harder to get. I think probably because they're a little bit more expensive to put together. And so I told her, I said, well, that's what we want to do. The ones, whatever the biggest need is, and we want to do that. And so already donations have been coming in a bunch, just left and right. So thank you all so much for your generosity. Even if all you can give is $5, there's no gift that's too small. We need every single bit that we can to be able to do our part. And again, it's not about, it's not about Icon solving the refugee crisis. It's about us going, okay, where is the good happening? And how can we participate in that good in any way? And so that's what we're going to do, is we're looking at the good that is happening. We're looking at the way that World Relief is partnering in countries around the world to ensure that people have dignity, that people have what they need, that people are loved, that they feel safe, that they're getting the support that they need as they are walking through really traumatic situations. And when I look at that, I just think, yeah, this is what love would have us do. Love would have us say, we want to be able to partner and participate in any way that we can. And so, again, you can check out those websites if you want more information or you want to get more involved. Also, you can go to the giving page at iconchurch.com/give. The drop down is World Relief to be able to donate towards those welcome kits. We will be at the end of September. I haven't got a set date yet from Calla, but it'll be at the end of September is when we will make that delivery. We told her we would take care of delivering all the welcome kits to the Dallas area. So also, if you are interested in when it gets to that point of putting them together, doing the shopping and boxing everything up, and even making the drive to Dallas, just reach out and let us know. We would love to have you be able to partner and be a part in that way. So I hope you guys loved that. I hope that you were inspired and encouraged and challenged for all of us to do our part, and that we can go about our Sunday holding on to that piece of the good, that there is good that is happening and we get to be a part of it. So I love you all so much, and thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you back here next Sunday as we continue our series, Where is the Good? Have a great day, everyone.